Welcome to Everything Casual, bringing you original football casual videos from the golden era of the 80s and 90s, right up to current day. Football away day stories and historic clashes between football firms. Subscribe so you don't miss out. We upload videos every week. Today we are looking into the history of Sheffield United's mob, the Blades business crew. They were very active and very naughty in the good old days, and were highly rated by a lot of lads. If you are new to the channel, this is a place where we can all reminisce and share stories from back in the day. And if I get any facts wrong, I welcome lads that have been there and done that to leave a comment and set the record straight. If you are a regular to the channel, welcome back. I greatly appreciate your support. As usual, we will listen to a bit of history on the firm, and then we will listen to stories from actual lads from the Blades mob. Let's jump straight in. In the early 1980s, Sheffield United's firm, known as the Blades business crew, began to carve out its reputation. While many football firms were driven by territorial pride and violence, the BBC was distinctive for its calculated nature. The crew wasn't just about fighting, it was about control, identity, and street dominance. At the heart of it all was one man, Steve Cowens. The Blades business crew quickly gained notoriety, particularly due to their fierce rivalry with Sheffield Wednesday's own hooligan group. Throughout the 80s, the city was a battleground, with clashes on match days and beyond. One of the most infamous incidents was the 1984 clash, where the BBC took on the Wednesday mob in a bloody confrontation that left a permanent mark on both firms. More than just a violent group, the Blades business crew developed a unique culture. Their distinct style, influenced by Italian fashion and casual wear, became a hallmark of their identity. The crew wasn't just about being feared, it was about being respected, in the pubs, in the streets, and on the terraces. As the BBC's reputation grew, so did their media coverage. News outlets painted them as one of the most dangerous football firms in the UK. But within their ranks, they were seen as a brotherhood, a tight-knit group that thrived on the adrenaline of match days. Steve Cowens, who became one of the most vocal members, wrote about his experiences in several books. I will leave a link in the comment section if you are interested in his books. They are top quality, by the way. His books shed light on the world of football hooliganism from the inside. By the late 80s and early 90s, increasing police crackdowns, the introduction of all-seater stadiums, and a cultural shift in football fandom led to the decline of firms like the BBC. However, their legacy still echoes in the streets of Sheffield. The Blades business crew might have faded from the spotlight, but their impact on both the city and football culture cannot be forgotten. We are going to dive into one of Steve's books now and listen to a few of his interesting stories and insight. Then we are going to listen to a great interview with Steve, and then ex-footballer turned Sheffield United football hooligan Carl Colley and his story. Let's listen to some of Steve's stories first. The infiltrating or taking of cops was now becoming commonplace. So, Sheffield Wednesday's visit to the lane in September was expected to see them infiltrate the Shoreham end in big numbers, and that intrusion had to be met with some serious resistance. A Blades meet was arranged for midday at the Howard Hotel across from Sheffield's train station. 50 or so Blades stood outside the pub, with a lot more inside. Half a dozen Dronfield Blades joined the throng. The Blades lads were buzzing. Their hatred for Wednesday knew no bounds. Word was out that Wednesday were meeting up at the same time in Fitzalan Square, around 800 yards from our meet. A few lads who turned up confirmed that there was indeed loads of Wednesday in the square. In those days, it never entered our minds to go up and confront them. The fighting was to take place in or around the ground. After half an hour, we set off to the ground. It was considered important that we got in before the Owls mob. On the journey, an assortment of weapons were picked up, bricks, iron bars and lumps of wood all collected from building sites along Shoreham Street. On arriving at the ground, 30 or more blades sat on a wall outside the turnstiles on John Street. Yet more blades arrived in ones and twos, swelling our ranks to 150 or more. The turnstiles weren't open yet, so all we could do was wait. Word soon came through that a big Wednesday mob had been seen walking down the moor end of the city centre. This meant that they would arrive at the ground via Bramall Lane at the opposite end of John Street. Sure enough, a mass of blue and white appeared at the other end of John Street and slowly walked towards us. Judging by their numbers, it was equal. If you are a bit of a dresser and you love designer clothes, especially some of the brands worn on the terraces, but don't want to pay silly prices, but don't want to wear moody fake clothes either, then check out my shop on Vinted. Just go on Vinted and type in everything casual and my garms should pop up. The clothes are pre-loved, all in great condition and all authentic. I recently sold an Aquascutum jumper for £8 and a Vivienne Westwood shirt for a tenner. Everything is that sort of price, so get on Vinted and check out our new shop. Or click the link in the description. Blades leaped to their feet as one and sprinted towards them. Both mobs reached the players' entrance, which was halfway along John Street. At this point, as the two mobs squared up, Wednesday turned and ran. Nobody chased them far, nobody said, "Let's do this. Let's go back to the cop." There were no leaders, no one was in charge. United's mob looked to have an average age of 18, as none of the older suits or rockers was with us. Maybe it was the fact that Wednesday were invading our territory, or just the sheer hatred we had for them. But it was the first time our young lads had done Wednesday. We were coming of age. We calmly walked back to the cop and sat back down. We were defending our cop, kids playing war games. It never entered my head I might get hurt. The Wednesday mob didn't go far. They appeared again soon after. This time they didn't get as far as the first time as we chased them again. The turnstiles opened at 1:30. We piled on our cop, and instead of heading for our usual place at the front behind the goal, lined up at the top of the steps at the back of the Shoreham. I didn't have a clue what would be going through Wednesday lads' heads. Did they have leaders? And, if they did, would they still come on, having already been run twice? Sure enough, they emerged and started queuing outside the cop. From our vantage point we could see out onto the street. Everyone stood waiting for them to come walking up the 100 or so steps that lead on to the top of our cop, or Angina Hill as it was commonly called. The first 20 or so that emerged were greeted with a hail of rocks and bricks. They hid behind a wall at the bottom. They could actually enter the cop in the bottom corner via the kids' enclosure, but no matter which way they tried, they were fucked, in our opinion, as we held the higher ground and pelted them with anything to hand. Where were the coppers, you ask? Nowhere is the answer. They didn't fancy the prospect of trying to get in the middle of hundreds of armed-to-the-teeth rampant teenagers. 4, 5, 6 times. The pig fans tried to get to the back of our cop, but each time they were beaten back. Finally, after an hour of chaos, the police arrived and surrounded the Wednesday mob and actually walked them up our cop. We charged down and threw everything we had at the 2 sets of pigs. The coppers were just as bad as their newfound mates, but they also turned and fled under the barrage. 10 minutes later, more plod arrived. This time they mingled in with us and watched for any missile throwers, who were immediately arrested. This allowed the police to bring up the Wednesday mob without it coming under attack. They were then placed at the right-hand side of us. The ground was about full now, with both groups being swelled by more lads joining their ranks. Wednesday had obviously gathered a lot of the missiles we had thrown and returned fire. The cop became a missile battlefield. Macduff, the eldest of the 6 Cordell brothers, 3, were blades and 3 were owls, wore a hunter's white pith helmet with the words Blades written on the front. He'd borrowed it from me after my mother had purchased it at a jumble sale. It was lucky he had it on, as a large rock crashed into it, causing a big dent on the side. Lads from both sides were led away with head injuries to be treated by the St John Ambulance volunteers stationed pitchside. There weren't many black lads around at the time, but one black lad called Mick Grudge hung around with the Healy mob. Mick was Wednesday and was at the forefront of the Wednesday mob, dishing it out to any blades that came near him. His fellow Healy mates, Herman and the rest of them, had seen enough and, even though he was a mate, laid into him, forcing him back into the crowd. I can only remember one black lad with the blades at that time. His name was Arthur. He wasn't really black, just dark looking. I'm ashamed to say it now, but in our ignorance we were terrible racists at the time and used all sorts of names we wouldn't use now. Parents even told you if you didn't behave, the black man would get you. We even sang awful racist songs. But, in our defence, we really didn't know any better. It wasn't until the very early 70s that we began to meet and get to know black lads in pubs and clubs in town. I began to realise that we were all the same, and in all walks of life, some were good, some were bad, no matter what colour the skin. The game kicked off before 36,000 crammed into the ground. The fighting continued and both managers made loudspeaker appeals for calm. No one gave a fuck. We were having fun. With the game well underway, things calmed slightly, but still the odd missile hit the target, and some lad who couldn't be treated on the spot was whisked off to hospital. Most Wednesday fans had left the ground before Omid Iron Lungs, Legs of Plastic. John Ritchie scored the late winner for Wednesday, their last victory, at beautiful downtown Bramall Lane, by the way. We left the ground, pissed off at the result, but proud that we had successfully defended the Shoreham. We did our usual walk up the moor into the town centre, but no mobs of Wednesday were around. Front page headlines read, 6 hospital cases, Ma Ritchie's Derby winner, and all the information in the detailed report had been gathered from lads who took part. Their names and addresses were added onto their accounts. Imagine that now. Everything was detailed from the meeting place of both mobs to the chase along John Street. United's chairman played it down as high spirits. The national newspapers picked up on the story on Monday morning, and according to the tabloids, Sheffield United topped the league table for arrests and disorder. Great stuff. Top of the league at last. I was just one of a new breed of game youngsters that got together in the early 80s, who took it to Wednesday and eventually overpowered them. Through the years, I have been arrested 5 times for Wednesday United-related trouble. I was born into a family of Big Blade supporters, and my granddad was the foundation of my love of United. He was as biased a Blade as you'll ever see. United could lose 5-0, but it was never the team's fault. No, the opposition were dirty players, or the referee never gave us a thing, any excuse to defend his beloved club. My cousins were all Blades, and when the new South Stand was built in the year 1974, we bought season tickets together for this stand that seemed a million miles away from sticking our faces through the white railings and hanging our scarves from our wrists on the John Street terrace. In 2006, when United had plastic seating fitted to the South Stand, they sold off the old wooden seats. I went down and bought the very same seat that I'd christened in the year 1974, when United drew 1-1 with Derby County. The seat has been fixed to a wall overlooking my koi carp pond in the garden. At 15 or 16, I got into the piss poorly named New Romantic Scene and started going to clubs like the Crazy Daisy on High Street and the Limit on West Street. I stopped well fucking short of putting makeup on like a lot of lads did who were into the scene. I danced the night away, flicking my stupidly overgrown fringe to the latest tunes like Visage's Fade to Grey, Spandau Ballet's To Cut a Long Story Short, and Kraftwerk's classic The Model. The clubs not only played the new romantic stuff, they also played great music from The Jam, Clash, Madness, The Cure and The Specials. The Crazy Daisy had a bad reputation for trouble, and my dad had warned me about going in the club. After all, I was only 16, and 16 then ain't the 16 it is now. The club had seen a lot of trouble between rival groups of blacks and whites. But, as a 16-year-old, I thought I knew better. It was in the Crazy Daisy nightclub that I had my first taste of violent Sheffield Wednesday style. One of Wednesday's older lads, who I didn't know from Adam at the time, came up to me and demanded, "Take that effing badge off or I'll smash you all over," referring to my Blades badge. I refused, and the Wednesday lad sloped off. Later, I was punched from the side while having a piss in the toilet, then volleyed into the piss trough by the Wednesday lad and his mates. The bully was a well-known divvy called Granville, who ran coaches for Wednesday's firm, and was one of their main actors. I think the incident left an overriding impression on me, and a hatred of Wednesday that hadn't been as strong as it was before the incident took place. A year after the Crazy Daisy attack, I was in Steely's Roxy's nightclub when I got talking to a lad called Cav, who worked with me. My new romantic clothes had now been replaced by Slazenger and Pringle jumpers and Adidas trainers. Cav hung around with a lot of Wednesday, and probably their main lad at the time was a big black fella called Harry. He saw my United badge and spat lager on it. The young blade went for him, and I was bundled away by Cav. No doubt I would have been mullered, but it was my shirt and club that had been spat on. Cav later effed Wednesday off, and not only became a great friend of mine, he became a great United lad too. I also remember Wednesday coming in the Red Lion at the bottom of West Street, and basically the 50 or so of them battered the 10 blades in there. I was 17 and the little posse of blades were mostly pups, and Wednesday's main actors thought it funny to knock the F out of us. More recently, Wednesday thought it funny to smash one of our game lads all over with bottles when 100 of them went in a pub while we were at West Ham. No, that's not bullying, it's effing shite. Wednesday knew they had the upper hand, but their arrogance during the late 70s and early 80s was to prove their downfall. It was quite weird at times in our city. Both sets of lads would often drink together in the Bluebell in town. People like Smids from United were good mates with Bender from Wednesday, and in certain situations the two groups would drink in the same pub without a hint of trouble. Leeds United's visit to Hillsborough in September 1982 confirmed this when an 80-strong United firm went in the Bluebell on High Street. Inside were over 100 Wednesday. Both groups didn't really mingle together. Our mob was at one end of the pub, the other firm were at the opposite end, and the middle ground was for the few people that knew each other, keeping a sort of peaceful barrier between the two mobs, as there was no doubt a few who wanted to knock Seven Shades out of each other. But in the name of Sheffield, they bottled their hatred up for once. Even though Sheffield turned out over 200 mixed lads, they would not fight side by side as this day proved. Leeds actually got into town, and Wednesday left the Bell to engage them in combat. United stayed put, which, looking back, was weird, really. News came back that Wednesday had been done by Leeds, and that Leeds were heading our way via the hole in the road. We left the Bell via the back doors, and in the little alley between the Dove and Rainbow and the Bell it kicked off with Leeds. Ribena shoe shop was raided, and stiletto heels were used by United's lads against Sheffield's most hated city. The stilettos were the last thing Leeds had to worry about, as Trimmer had a ratchet screwdriver, and he twice plunged it into the back of the neck of some poor Leeds lad. Leeds backed off, and we argued that we had done Wednesday's work for them as they weren't up to it. Later that night, the unlikely peace between Wednesday and United turned into violence as both sides clashed in town. It was probably the last time the two groups tolerated each other. It had been a situation that seems unbelievable nowadays, and one that most lads didn't want in the first place, but because a few respected lads knew each other and got on, the others tried to keep the cart on the rails. The shoots of a new breed of fan at Bramwell Lane were beginning to stir around this time. United's plight on the pitch was at an all-time low, and defeat to Walsall in the final game of the 1979-80 season saw the Blades ply their trade for the first time in English football's basement, the 4th Division. Wednesday fans mockingly call the day United were relegated Thank Givens Day, after Don Givens missed a last-minute penalty that would have kept United up. Perversely, the relegation actually made the club's fans stronger. Everywhere we went, we took big numbers, and to 16-year-old lads like me, it was an ideal time for serving an apprenticeship in terms of football violence. The youngsters, of which we had many, surfaced into this new world, a world of tennis, golf, and designer wear and fighting at football. The casual movement had erupted onto the scene, and, with it, a new breed of football hooligan. Wednesday, for their part, failed to see this new breed emerging in big numbers across the city. They treated our firm with contempt, and that was Wednesday's downfall. 3 years later, and with numerous battles under our belts, we were ready to take it to Wednesday, and take it to Wednesday we did, with bells on. The older United lads began to realise that these young lads in Fila and Tacchini were well up for the challenge, and a new optimism swept the hooligan corridors around Bramall Lane. It was time for a shift in power in the Steel City. The general consensus of opinion is that the shift of power from Wednesday to United occurred in the year 1985. My view is that, one winter's night in 1982, the fear myself and the rest of our main youngsters had for Wednesday was lifted after we had stood our ground against Wednesday's main firm that night and created a massive shift in attitude within our pups. The peace that had existed for the Leeds visit 3 months earlier had dissolved that same night as the two groups had clashed later in town. With Wednesday wounded that the Blades firm had had the audacity to even think of taking them on, they took it upon themselves over the next few months to start smashing in everything that was red and white. Our firm of youngsters had discussed on numerous occasions about how and when we were going to take over Who Runs the Show in Sheffield. For most of us it was bravado, because we were still only 16 to 18-year-olds. I, for one, really talked the talk, but deep down I knew I wasn't really ready to walk the walk, yet. Anyhow, around 25 of our young trendies were heading from the Penny Black pub in Pond Street that night to go and meet up with the rest of the older lads who had settled down in the Bluebell on Sheffield's High Street. Our pups all followed me into battle, and Wednesday were shocked at our attack. They backpedaled a couple of yards, but those couple of yards may have been a couple of miles, as we had surprised ourselves in moving these snorters back. I admit at the time I was bricking it. After all, I was only 17, and some of the geezers we had run into were double our age. The police thankfully came to our rescue, as Wednesday came back at us, but we had done enough, and I can still see the handshakes and high fives that our lot shared as we walked up to meet the rest of our firm. I was shouting, "I effing told you we could do them cunts." Although we hadn't actually run Wednesday, we'd done enough, and the fear and respect we once had for their firm was lifted. On entering the Bluebell, we couldn't tell the older lads quickly enough of our semi-result. Sensing that Wednesday would probably be thinking twice about our up-and-coming firm, the older lads left immediately and headed down to the Penny Black. The 60 of us ran Wednesday back inside the pub after they had initially spilled out into the street to engage in combat. The gamest Wednesday lad and the last to retreat was a black guy called Delroy, who has since passed away having suffered asthma attack. The pub was totaled and a couple of United's main actors got lifted, one of which was Eyes. That, in my view, was a major victory for the morale of our youngsters, and we never had the same respect for Wednesday's firm again. With friendships between United and Wednesday firmly put to bed, trouble between the two groups became more frequent than at any other period in time. Over the next couple of years, a power struggle evolved. One week Wednesday would come looking for the Blades mob. The following week United would go on the hunt. By the year 1984, it was a level playing field, and the battle for supremacy had at last begun. But by 1986, United's firm had all but taken over. Wednesday still had the odd result, and turned out big numbers to try and counterattack this new breed of Blades thug, but the damage had been done. The contempt they'd had for United's firm had come back and bitten them on the bollocks. There was no turning back for our firm, and, like a fox after a rabbit, we wouldn't let up until we were totally sure the job was complete. In 1985, a fight on London Road with a few of Wednesday's big hitters led to a year of trouble and a year in which me and a lad called Howie were number one on Wednesday's hit list. It all started late one night in the Lansdowne pub. Around 10 young United lads, myself included, entered the pub. Inside, standing near the door, were 6 Wednesday lads. 3 white and 3 black geezers, whose reputation went before them. It was evident from the start that they were out to cause some bollocks. And bollocks is what they got. As we were all relatively young, Yifter, the senior blade among us, took it on himself to try to pour oil on troubled waters. This didn't happen, and when one of the black blokes wanted to fight Yifter outside, he took up the offer, even though you could see in his eyes he didn't fancy it one bit. Fair play to him though, as none of us wanted trouble with this group. But his pride carried him through. Everyone headed outside, and I deliberately held back and was the last one out. As the two groups squared up, the Wednesday lads were calling all the shots about how we were wankers and hadn't got the bollocks to fight them. They had their backs to me, so I walked through them, turned and faced up a yard away, and without warning I chinned the nearest one to me. He went straight down and wasn't getting back up by the look of him. It kicked off, and despite the odds now being 2-1 in our favour, they had a right go. One was shot in the chest at point blank range with a distress flare, and one by one they were overpowered. 4 of their group were left unconscious in the middle of the road with 2 taken away by ambulance. I knew straight away that there would be serious repercussions. These game lads had lost some face, and anyone there that night would be on their shopping list. Sure enough, my name came out along with Howie's, when £10 Wednesday informed 2 blades that we were both dead meat. Then the 2 blades were clumped. Another United lad was assaulted in Sinatra's nightclub by one of the black lads. He was out with his girlfriend and lost a tooth in the attack. This was seen by many as totally out of order, but it also sent out the message that they meant business. The week after the assault in Sinatra's, United attacked a few Wednesday in the Hallamshire Hotel on West Street, in revenge for the aforementioned wrongdoing. Now let's listen to an actual interview with Steve Cowens, and he himself will talk you through some stories. The interview is courtesy of the Andy Rowe Show, all credit to him, and I urge you to check out his channel. I will leave a link in the description.
And one came from behind and smashed me in the face with a brick. Bust me nose, but it detached all my retina. He got knives, bats, harmonia, and as he fell on the floor, as his body fell out, he just smashed his head on the pavement, and he died. One got stabbed, one got an axe or a machete over the head. And these 4 or 5 blokes come at us, come on then. And I'm just looking and thinking, they didn't even retire, I thought they'd fucking Bob Billy, the police.
Steve Cowens, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Andy.
I'm just trying to understand the mentality of why you would join a football firm.
Football's tribal. It doesn't matter whatever you think. Football is tribal, especially in England. So if you're from Sheffield and we've got Leeds 30 miles up motorway, you aren't going to just sit there while like 300 of their lads mulch around your town centre, battering everything in the way, whether things. So yeah, you have to go and protect. And I've had this with a lot of United fans, Sheffield United fans, who weren't involved in violence, but they've said to me, before you lot came along, we weren't safe going to football. You came along, and we got a defence mechanism in place with you lot, because what happened with also in early the casual scene. I know you might not understand this, but a casual scene came along, which were all designer clothes, which it were mad. You'd be fighting in a £400 Burberry coat jacket or whatever, or with tennis gear, all your feeler and LS, and Sergio Tacchini came along with golfing stuff, where you'd be going in a Argyle Pringle sweater to football with Farrah slacks and looked $1 million, you know what I mean? Next minute you're getting ripped all over, we're fighting. But it was a massive cultural and social thing that happened, and it just swept all over the country. Every team in England, and Scotland for that matter, had a football firm, and a big football firm. So it was sort of survival at fittest. And everywhere you went, bear in mind, you've got to think as well, then there's no mobile phones, you couldn't really organise it. So you just tip up in a town centre, you didn't know what you're going to face. You could go to one town centre with 20 of you, and next minute 100 lads just tip up to pub and what have you. And I used to love that, to be honest with you. You know that it sounds perverse, this, you think he's fucking nuts, this cunt. But I used to love it when chips were down, when it were really bad odds, and that's when I come to my for that, because you can have a football firm of, say, 150 lads, but really, your football firm's your front 20 lads, because they're the ones that hold the line. They're the ones that steady the ship. All them could stand and jump around, and they're already on the back foot. It's the front 20 that hold it together. And I weren't front 20. I wanted to be front one. I didn't even want front 20. I wanted to be front one. So I was standing in front. I had no fear. That's probably why I got so many injuries.
What was the worst injury you got?
Again, my own fault. Can't moan about it. We played Blackburn. We just chased Blackburn's firm, but we'd gone on train, 10 of us. All the rest of them gone on coaches. So the rest of our firm went back to ground to get on the coaches, and we walked to where we just chased them. Obviously, they've seen us, 50 of them come running at us. There's only 10 of us. And I've just jumped in the middle of the road telling everybody, stand. And a few were out. Well, they left me. My own team left me, and they just got me. And one came from behind and just smashed me in the face with a brick. Bust my nose, but it detached all my retina. And my eye were out here. And I've still got blurred vision in it now. That's what I said. That was 1987. That I got slashed on my back at all. Various with bottles and this, that, and other stuff. But it's all been part and parcel. You can't cry about it because you don't have to be there, do you?
What was the buzz like for you? You know, if you're going to, let's say, an away game, or whether you were going to the city centre to meet an away support hooligan firm, like talk me through that sort of side of it.
The buzz, the adrenaline rush, the excitement of it all. I've always said the adrenaline rush when it kicks off at football. There's adrenaline junkies, like they'll jump off buildings or whatever, and I've never done it like that, but I can imagine jumping out of a plane, that initial rush or whatever people do, like dangerous stuff or whatever, gives them that adrenaline rush. I always said that nothing can compare. There's 100 lads running at you, screaming, throwing bottles and thing, and you've got to hold your line, and you've got to be strong, and that buzz and that adrenaline takes over from fear, which it certainly did with me. I never carried fear. It was just all a massive buzz. And it's like a drug, like being a drug addict, because you just wanted more of it. And especially when we started getting a really good reputation, or bad reputation, just depending on what side of the fence you visit. But in our hooligan, echelons of hooligans in country, we went from like quite a nondescript firm to one of probably best firms and most active firms. We just exploded, and everybody was talking about us. So much so that we got a lot of respect, and I could look down sometimes at United's mob and think there's hundreds of us here, and I don't think 2,000 lads would be able to shift us, because you just know people around you trusted them, and you knew they weren't going nowhere no matter what.
Let's talk about some of your war stories. Yeah, hooligan stories. Birmingham is they had the Zulus, didn't they? Their firm. You had a few fights with them, didn't you?
They came to Bramall Lane once, and they left the ground early, all their firm. There were a bit of fighting before game, but they left it, and they went to our pub on London Road, which is about 500 yards from ground and what have you. And they attacked the pub, and to finish with, they used knives. A couple of our lads got slashed, and one got stabbed. But we got up there in dribs and drabs because we all had to run up from ground, because attacking London Road. Well, so we'll run up. Maddish fighting. Well, helicopter above it, police helicopter filming it all. I'd love to see video of it. Just a proper war, toe to toe, table and chairs from the pub. They got knives. Proper like 100 aside, fighting like. We ended up running him, and to be honest, we were one of the lads who was slashed. He was an Asian lad. He got captured. He got tripped over, and he got absolutely splattered all over because he got knifed, and he got minced in right. And he was in Sheffield Hospital for 4 days. In fact, they sent him a card saying "Get well soon" from the BBC, which is Blade's business crew.
Which is the Sheffield United crew firm.
Yeah, they sent him a card to hospital as a piss take saying "Get well soon" from BBC, which I thought was quite funny. But yeah, and then we played him later on in the season. We took about 150, 120, 150 down there. A lot went again down there. And for like 2 or 3 seasons, us and Birmingham just had this massive rivalry in it. And as quick as it developed, it's gone. It went again.
When you guys got promoted to the top league at one point, you obviously start playing against some of the bigger clubs. What were some of those firms like? Did Tottenham, for example, did they have much of a firm? How'd you get on with those guys?
Yeah. Sort of in 80s, Chelsea and West Ham were firms in London, especially West Ham. They were awesome for Cass's outfit. But later on, it got that Tottenham got a really, really good and respected firm, and we went down there. We took a right good firm down. There was trouble before the game, but nothing major. Then after the game, we all came out ground. We'd all got to go back to Seven Sisters at Tube Station. So we were waiting to get everybody together, and just as we were waiting to get everybody together outside ground, they all came, and I went, "They're here," and a lot of our lads still hadn't come out at ground. Anyway, it kicked off. Oh fuck! Toe, everybody's fighting like folk. There's about 6 police in the middle of it trying to keep it. That everybody's just fighting. Everybody's just ignoring them, just fighting like mad. And then more and more of our lads are coming out at ground, and we end up running them up road, down Seven Sisters. Then it was fighting outside Tube.
1992, you're taking on the Chelsea Headhunters, which were the country's top firm, weren't they? Tell me about that.
To be honest with you, they stitched us up. We had 100 lads out that day. We were in World's End at Camden. And I looked around and I thought, fuck it, this firm's not going nowhere. It don't matter how many Chelsea's got. And what were happening, they kept coming up to the pub, and so they were taunting us, and they were trying to get us out of the pub. And I was shouting at everybody, "Don't go out. That's what they want us to do. Stay here. Let them. We're on their turf. Let them come to us. And then if they came and they got weapons, we could go out at the pub and we've got chairs or whatever, and we could. But no, because we were that cocksure of ourselves, and they were that up for it. They ended up following down these who were goading us down this road. I knew it was set up. I was shouting, bawling. I was right at back for once in my life. I was right at back because I got right ump on. I says, fucking, next minute, Chelsea came round the corner, told up to folk. They got knives, bats, harmonia in Jif, the little lemon Jif bottles. So they squirt it, it goes in your eyes, or and you can't, you're blind, you can't see. They got them, they're squirting them on her. Massive fight kicked off, but we were all Queensberry rules with fists, and everywhere you look, they got weapons and what have you. And they run us, no ifs or buts about it. So they run us right back to the pub because we couldn't fight with weapons. Later on, we smashed them all over because we bumped into them on tubes, and they ditched the weapons. But since that, I'm not going to say name that lad, but the lads told me what they did that day. They parked 3 vans up full of tools because they couldn't carry them around with them because the police got them. So they got these 3 vans parked up. So when we gone down this road, they just all tipped out this pub, went into vans, got everything, and just attacked us with it. As soon as they run us and got back, chucked all the stuff back in vans, and then they were all thing.
Did you ever have any run-ins with Millwall?
Oh yeah, loads. I like Millwall. I've got so much respect for them. We had a lot of tear-ups with him. There's a lot of things that had gone off. One of my good friends, Steve Race, won't be thanking me for this because they beat him up in London and nicked his trainers, and then season after come to Bramall Lane, and because our stand were near their away, and this geezer's got his trainers on, and they're all pointing at his feet, like, you know what I mean, because he nicked his trainers in this fight.
It's good banter.
But yeah, when you went to live Coldblow Lane, which was Millwall's old ground in the 80s, you took your life in your hand. And I went 5 or 6 times, and every one it was mayhem. In 83, Millwall stopped off in Sheffield and ended up fighting with some Sheffield United fans and a few people who were just out in town. And a Millwall fan died in fight.
Died?
Yeah, he died.
Far out. That's not
So
good.
what happened? He tried to drop kick somebody, and as he'd missed him, he fell back, smashed his head in on pavement, and whatever happened. But he died. Very unfortunate. So it weren't like he got beat up and killed and whatever. I don't know if he was drunk or whatever, but he tried to kung fu kick somebody, missed him, and as he fell on the floor, as his body fell out, he just smashed his head on pavement, and he died. But Millwall all put it round there. Oh, we Sheffield United to kill one of our lads, you know what I mean? And it weren't like that. And they eventually, all truth came out and what have you. But for 4 or 5 years, it were Millwall, Sheffield United it were a bit manic.
What would happen when England plays? Did the firms team up?
England would take that many lads there. They take a lot of northern firms went. A lot of smaller clubs used to take a big firm with England. Like they'd take like people like Carlisle and Stockport and all that, but they'd take 50 lads and what have you. And during World Cup in '96, we're in France in Lille. Oh, Derby started fighting with Forest because there were nobody to fight with. There were massive 3,000 or 4,000 English in this square, all pissed up. Because there were nobody to fight with, Derby don't like Forest, so they started fighting with them. And Chelsea had a fight with Leeds and blah, blah. I says, oh, fuck this. You're representing England to me. And they were letting club rivalries take over main thing, which you're here to support England. And I just thought, I fucking can't be doing with this.
What happened in Poland? 2,000 euros.
I'll be honest with you, 2 Sheffield United lads nearly got killed. One got stabbed. One got a machete, a axe or a machete over the head. He's got a scar on his head that long. It were all arranged by a middleman from Holland, a well-known middleman who used to fix all hooligan firms up to fight with each other. So he fixed this fight up in, I think he called it Monument Park. Polish come and basically just smashed England all over. Some Sheffield United lads stood, and they just got obviously beat up, stabbed, and like I say, one of them got machete over the head. They were lucky to live really. So I think it's just going a bit fucking too far, that, you know. Wednesday in Sheffield used to be best firm in '70s. Before I was involved, I was too young. When '80s came along, sort of till 80, 83, Wednesday was still, they had a lot of big lads and big hitters, and our old lads couldn't deal with them. But when our young casuals came along, myself and a few others, and we just came and showed them no respect. They were trying to knock me down a peg or two, and they were trying to deal with me as a message to everybody else. Thought if they get fucking batter me and get me, that people. So I was targeted a bit. Like I said, they came to me work. I got phone calls to my house, threatening stuff. And anyway, one day I went football. A fucking freezing cold. There were only 4 of us on pitch because it was that cold. They'd all stayed in changing rooms, and I was on pitch trying to warm up. And my dad was there because my dad used to run team like he used to be manager. I fucking won in, and one of my mates says, "Fucking Wednesday here." So I looked, and there's like 5, 6 lads walking up, with all with scars around the face. And I knew straight away, and they were one of them, one of Wednesday's main lads, who didn't have no covering on his face. I know he'd come for me, so I just went, and I fucking on, got my football kit on and my boots and everything. So I was running, I went, "Come on then." And he just went like that, pulled fucking his cleaver out of his coat. And next minute, I looked, one's got a bat, one's got a bottle, one's got a knife. And I'm like that, and I'm trying to fight with him. Got hit with it back, fucking me. 2 or 3 teammates, they just froze, but they weren't football hooligans, you know what I mean? They're just football lads like that. I didn't think no worse of them, not coming to train out there. But I wouldn't run. And then I thought, he's fucking got it, 2 or 3 times with his bat. And I looked behind me, and there were a cricket pitch fenced off for winter with these like big 3x3 rustic posts in ground. So I just fucking run off, fucking pull this big rustic post out. I went, we're all tooled up now. And I run, and just as I run at them, and they all started thinking, but one threw this big bottle at me, it's hit me on the knee, smashed on my knee, ripped all my thigh up. I don't ever seen a muscle when it cuts, it just fluffs up like cotton wool.
Yeah.
I got this big ball of cotton wool on my leg like that. I running after them, chased them all the way up with this big fucking thing. And my leg just went numb, and I couldn't keep up. I was fucking running and running. And then my leg went numb, and I just like collapsed on the floor. And they'd run off. I had to go and have stitches in hospital and all that lot. I actually pulled them all, though, even though they got scars around the faces and what have you. I got to know every one of them who were there, and I pulled them all one by one. Oh shit! I cracked 2 of them. I punched 2 of them, but I said like, and they were all saying he said it was going to be 1-on-1. I went, well, it would have been 1-on-1 if you aren't a fucking old. But he pulled the cleaver out. And I could have had a fight 1-on-1 with him, but they'll come up trying to fucking club me with bats. So I went, that ain't no 1-on-1. So bang out the door, and that's how serious Sheffield United and Sheffield Wednesday rivalry is. That story epitomises how bad it were that it got to that stage where we're prepared to go that low just to try and beat number 1 in City, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Because they knew we were taking over.
We've touched on it a couple of times about undercover cops, because I find that quite interesting. And you were saying how they stick out like sore thumbs. Can you remember any specific time where you kind of gone, oh, that's old Bill, that's a police officer there?
I'll tell you a little story. Once we were playing Man City at Bramall Lane. It were sort of 88, 89. And Man City's firm were walking towards the petrol station about Bramall Lane. We come round corner, big fight happened and all this lot. And then all these police come from everywhere into everybody. And then we all got split up. And then I ended up going round corner with 2 of my mates, because they were nicking everybody in it, cracking everybody, horses were there. And these 4 or 5 blokes come at us, come on then. And I'm just looking and thinking, these aren't football lads, these just how they were dressed in. And I'm going, fuck off. And they're going, come on, and one tried to boat me. And I didn't even retire, I thought they were fucking old Bill, the police. And I went, well, fuck, I could get your uniforms back on. They just like stopped and just looked at me like gone out, thinking, get your fucking uniforms back on. They were trying to square up. I'd throw one punch, I'd have been nicked. And they were trying to boot me and all sorts of it. But they just stuck out like sore thumbs, just their haircut, everything about them. They couldn't even square up properly. You know football lads. And it was just, I thought, fucking hell. That's how bad it's getting now, that they're trying to cause you to throw a punch, and then they've got the arrest, haven't they? You throw them back, you're nicked.
Steve Cowens, thank you very much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for that. But before I go, love and peace to everybody.
Thanks, Steve. And if you want to read more about football violence in the 80s and 90s, check out Blades Business Crew. It's basically a book full of fighting. And Steve's got some other books as well, Blades Business Crew 2, and he's also put both those books together and released out a latest copy, haven't you?
Yeah, you can get my books on my website as well. So it's www.stevecowens.co.uk.
Great, and thank you very much for listening. Some of our best guests have come from your ideas. So if you have any suggestions on who we should interview next, feel free to slide into my DMs on Instagram or Twitter. And make sure you share this with your friends.
Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If you subscribe, you will be notified when we release a new video. It could be your firm we make a video about next, so don't miss out and hit the subscribe button. You can find me on Facebook or email me if you have a good story to tell. See you next time.